Thank you. So I have my cane because I've got, unfortunately, I have a hip surgery in about 2 weeks. So a little different from the discussion we just had. By the way, for those of you in the room before, I did the same thing. I tried doing live audio between San Diego and Amsterdam, which was even more difficult because of the connectivity issues. But it does work. I mean, he's right. It absolutely does work, and it's amazing how that happens. And he's also right that a speaker physically in the room versus in ears makes a big difference. So I'm not going to talk about audio, even though we're on the EES side, although there's obviously audio is very important. By the way, from my perspective, audio is more important than video, just so you know. I will also tell you that my first job was in audio. I learned how to make cables and all the rest. I was also on the board of IAR, the Institute of Audio Research here in New York. So I have a long story in audio. But what they asked me to talk about is IPMX. So how many of you in the room know about what IPMX is? I mean, some of you do. Oh, you all know what IPMX is. Okay, great. So, no, in the back. So, a little bit. All right. So, let me get this going here. Where's my next slide? Okay. Okay, so basically, done a lot of stuff, broadcaster, distance learning, TV, and the things of that nature. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of what we're actually talking about. So what we did is we set up a fully functional multi-node IPMX facility here in New York City. And you're all invited to come and see it if you like. Basically, there's a 20,000 square foot space at the Swedish-American Chamber of Commerce. I'm not Swedish, but they had space, and I needed space. They had no technology. I had technology. We made a deal. And I've worked now with 87 different broadcasters, different manufacturers, to bring technology and to look at interoperability to see how it all works. And we're looking at it from the perspective of not just broadcast, but corporate presentations, using IPMX for that. So the space, just very simply, we've got conference rooms, we've got LED screens with automatic camera switching based on Sennheiser TC2, QSC audio, we have Teams, Zoom, we have another wall with the megapixel driving an nanolumens wall, E2 processor. For those of you in the AV world, this is all very natural. Also, again, QSC, Sennheiser, but we also do things with event space where we're having a lot of stuff with the Yamaha. So we're using Yamaha Decia and Yamaha mixers, etc. But a little bit of everything. As you can see, we've got a lot of different companies here. But that's all fine and dandy. So what we've set up in the lab is we're looking at uncompressed versus compressed with HDR, SDR. So we're trying to look at what happens when you take a signal from one of these devices, whether it's a camera, a laptop, or something else, and what happens when you put it onto a monitor, what happens when you put it onto a display, what happens when you put it on the video wall. In the corporate world, HDCP, content protection, is kind of important because it's not a broadcast space, so we are doing things, so therefore we need to make sure that we have that capability, and IPMX does give us HDCP. Of course, AES24, we have to be able to get that into IPMX, and we have to get it out of IPMX back into AES24, because in a corporate environment, many times the audio and video are separate. We're trying to keep, might be a QSC system running the audio, or a biamp or something of that nature, but we have to run the audio separately from the video. We also are not in the mode of, in a full broadcast facility with 2110, we can do red, blue, we can do a -7, but when we're doing a lower cost system and we're doing it over maybe a slower network, maybe instead of a 400 gig backbone, and we want to run it on a 1 gig network or a 1.5 or 2 gig network, we want to be able to have redundancy and security, so we have daisy chaining, so the signal can go from one to the other and back up the other way, and so it doesn't fall apart if we have a problem along the way. And of course, in a corporate world where we don't necessarily have a full broadcaster or an audio engineer, you got to be able to plug something in and it works. I got to take my laptop, plug it in, and it just automatically detects it and says it's there. And of course, we need all the advantages of 2110 with NMOS routing. So I need to be able to go in there and say, I want to put this to there, but do more than that. I want to put this to there, but I want the video go this way, and I want the audio to go that way, and I want to do it over IP. And I don't want any physical routers that are other than a switch on the network. So, so we put a lab together. That's a picture of the lab. And as you can see, we have a lot of different displays. So on the back wall, those 4 screens on the back wall, those are Sony HDR monitors that are giving you the capability of looking at, I can route anything to anything. I can send stuff that is HTTP. I can send stuff compressed, uncompressed, a lot of capabilities. You can see there are a lot of cameras in the room and speakers. So the speakers are obviously Dante or AES24 Direct. And we also have a planar video wall on the back wall. And then there's, if you come to the lab, you'll see, somebody counted how many cameras I have. I think there's something like 32 cameras in my office, which is kind of nuts. But and you can see some of the people that we're working with to put all this together. So there's more pictures of the lab. So on the rack, on the right-hand side, you will see the rack with a lot of the encoders in it. So on the top, that's the color light processor, which is driving the planar wall. That gets the IP signal directly in. There's no converter, there's no HDMI. It's basically an Ethernet port from the switch that we see all the wires down the switch directly into that. Same thing with the megapixel processor, which is below that. And then those boxes below are taking various sources, whether HDMI, HDSDI, whatever, and then bringing it in. And then we can extract the audio, we can split it, we can make it do whatever we want into the system. Here we go. So this is what a routing panel looks like. You can create as many different layouts as you want, create what rooms. So in this particular case, across the top, if you do Dante, it's kind of look familiar, very similar. So those are sources up there. So you just do the sources, and down the bottom left are destinations. And I just created a panel. In this case, it was a panel for just those 4 monitors. So I have a bunch of sources, and I got panels down the side. And in fact, this is just a picture. I just snapped it, but if you keep on going, it keeps on going to the right. There's more and more. But you can create as many panels as you want and create whatever routing you want. But when we're routing, we're only sending IP signals. There's no router, there's no video switcher. It is just IP, just like we do in the audio world, except we're doing audio and video. We can also keep things synchronized. So for example, on the upper screen, that is those 2 screens are actually playing from a server. They're in perfect sync with each other, and it's doing it without PTP clock. So I don't have to go through all the PTP clock that you have to do with 2110. The bottom left, that's a Blu-ray player. So that's taking the HDCP, taking HDMI from a Blu-ray player, and automatically sticking it up on an HDR monitor. And on the far right bottom, that is from a laptop. That laptop is coming directly out of the laptop. It's coming out 444. It's coming out at very high resolution, and it goes up there. So it doesn't really matter what the source is. It can be coming from a server. It can be synchronized, non-synchronized, compressed, uncompressed. That's the beauty of this whole IPMX. And, oh, by the way, I can run all this at 1 gig if I want to. I don't have to run it at full 25 gigs. Now, the backbone of our network is, in fact, a 100 gig network. It's using Netgear Pro AV switches, but we don't have to do it that way. We can actually run. So in this particular space, it's actually running on a Netgear. It's copper, and we're running it at 10 gigs, obviously, on the copper. We're not getting to 25 gigs. Here's how it sort of works. So basically, you have sources, and you have destinations. And as you can see, so the bottom right, you'll see the 4 monitors in the room, and then you'll see 4 decoders. Those are on the wall, right behind here. Sorry, there it is. So those decoders on the wall there, those are the wall going there. So it comes into the decoder, and it goes back out just HDMI. Unfortunately, we don't have monitors yet that will take IPMX directly, but it's coming. If you have a monitor with an ODM slot, you can obviously put an ODM module in, but without an ODM slot, what we really want to see is we want to just be able to plug in an Ethernet cable. I was asked by a manufacturer, large, remain unnamed, a large manufacturer of displays, TVs, et cetera. And I was talking about IPMX, and they were like, what's that all about? And they said, well, what vertical is it? I said, what do you mean, what vertical is it? He said, well, what is it? Is it an education vertical? Is it a corporate vertical? I said, let me ask you a question. What vertical is HDMI? I said, well, it's like everything. I said, well, that's the answer. It's not one vertical, it's everything. Remember, we went from composite video and RCA jacks for audio, and then we went to HDMI. We did 3-wire first, then we went to HDMI, and it's ubiquitous. I believe that we are in the same boat. We're about to do the exact same thing with IPMX. That IPMX is an open standard. It's not locked into any one company. Now, of course, there are people doing things like with QSC, we have a whole QLAN. With Crestron, I have NVX. There are a lot of different proprietary systems for doing video over and audio over IP. Well, even Dante, for that matter, is not really a standard. It's really, I mean, AES67 is a standard. Dante is the control layer. But if we look at this, I believe the industry needs something where we are all on a standard where everybody is equal. There's no licensing paid to anybody. You can actually run the entire thing. 2110, well, I'll get to it in a second, is a really great standard, but it's designed for broadcasters. And I'm trying to figure out a standard that works not just for broadcasters, but works for regular people that are not going to hire a network engineer and put in a gazillion-dollar system. And it's got to just plug and play. You got to plug it in, you got to do it. So here, basically, I've got sources, whether it's an audio coming out of a laptop and it comes out of a Dante I/O, goes in, gives the AES67, come out to an encoder and gets into the switch. It can be a player, it can be a camera, it can be a Blu-ray player. Those things all go into the switch. And then I have an NMOS controller that I can use to point where I want, and I'm just telling the switch, just route this to here to there. And then on the output side, I can go out to my monitors, or I can go to my LED wall, or I can actually go out to a video router. I can take it back out to SDI if I want to, or any other things, or I can bring it back in as more data coming from the location. So it's basically a complete routing system, but it's all based on a switch. The second room of the room, here it is. Here's another of our event space. So we have displays. Some of them are 16 by 9, some of them are 21 by 9, some of them are 1080p, some of them are 4K, some of them are 5K screens. They just connect to the network. And the same thing, I've got cameras. So in the event space, there are actually 4 cameras in there that are all PTZs. And then they go back out over into the network, and of course, they're all routable. And the Canvas system, that's a server. That's what's giving you that thing at the top. It's far more interesting than what you see here, than that image I put up. If you've not seen it, it's kind of cool. And so we can run at different bit rates. We don't have to run at just 10 gig. We can run at 1 gig, 25 gig, or whatever we want to do. This is the back end, just so you can see what it looks like. So basically, where all the blue wires are, that's all the fiber optics for the 25 gig. And then you've got all the various processors for the different systems we have. The megapixel, the red is there's a barcode video wall, there's an E2. So there's a combination, there's all the standard stuff that you would see in an AV environment. So why IPMX? Well, it's really simple. 2110 is out there, but it's designed to replace HD SDI. That is a 12 gig process. It's 422, it's 10 bits, it's basically designed for video cameras, and it's designed to go onto a 16 by 9 screen, because that's what broadcasters do. But the reality is that in the event space, in the corporate space, we're not looking at 16 by 9 screens anymore. We're looking at LED screens of any size. I see someone here from 7 Sense, the Sphere, for example. That's not 16 by 9 by any chance in imagination. So you've got to be able to process this stuff. And you're not going to want 422, you're going to want 444 if you're trying to put graphics up there, especially if you're trying to put a spreadsheet up there. You're also going to want to have more than 10 bits, because you want that resolution. You don't want to see the banding, etc. So IPMX doesn't reinvent things, but 2110 and 3550 describe how to do things, but the reality is the manufacturers today are building it to only work as a replacement for HDSDI cables. That's what they're doing. What IPMX does, it clarifies it. It basically says it's a superset of 2110. By the way, all this stuff is specified in 2110. It's just nobody builds it. So what we're doing is we're taking the core of 2110, we're putting a layer on top of it, and solving all the problems of HDCP, EDIT, KVM, dynamic change of resolutions. Like if I change from one thing to the other, if I plug a laptop in and I plug in a camera and it changes resolution, the thing should automatically switch for you. That's what IPMX does. It should be able to do copper, compressed at 1 gig, as well as ultra low latency, and oh, by the way, no PTP clock. Now, obviously there's a clock in there, but the PTP clock, if you have a PTP clock, you know, if you've got a really great solution and you've got a GPS antenna on the roof and you've got your nice locked in and you're building a broadcast facility, yip-de-doo, wonderful. That's not the case. I mean, you would not put a 2110 network in this room here. What's going to happen coming out of that camera, it's going to come out HDMI, it's going to go into a little encoder, into a little switcher over there, and you know, that's what we need to be able to do in the IP world. We don't want to see the coax cable anymore. That's the whole objective here. We really want to be into an IP world. Ideally, I'd like to come out of that camera, go right into a switch. I want to take my monitor here, this little projector, and that should plug in directly an IP cable into that, and we're done. We're not running HDMI. We're not running other things around. Oh no, by the way, the audio, I've got to be able to split it out to put over here because I run it differently than something else. That's the beauty of where IPMX is going. Now, so basically, ST2110, fabulous. It's been around for 7 years, but in some respect, someone said the other day, you know, 2110 is sort of the legacy system. IPMX is the next generation. But it's designed for broadcast. It's great. There are a lot of manufacturers building things. But if you really want to do and make it ubiquitous and run all over the place, you need something else. And you really don't want to be, I don't think, into a locked-in solution. There's nothing wrong with Crestron. There's nothing wrong with QSys. But those are locked in. If you have QSys, you have to use QSys cameras. You have Crestron, you use Crestron things. I really would like to be in a situation where I can go Ethernet plug or optical into the device, into the switch, and plug that into the other device and keep it real simple. We're still a few years away from that before that allows to happen, but that's where it's going. That's what I think the answer is all about. So it's, why we want to do this? Well, we're aiming at the Pro AV market. We're aiming at the audio market. We're aiming at people doing things. There's generally no house sync. There's a lot of asynchronous connections, which are coming from a laptop, various sources coming in. Could be an Apple TV for all I know. You know, that's where you want the HDCP coming out. It's small networks. We're not building, you know, Arista switches with gazillion dollars behind it. They're great. They work great. But I'm not building CBS here. I'm building a conference room in here. Obviously, I also need other color spaces besides YUV. So RGB, for example, is one. I don't have to worry that, oh, I can't make this work because it's the wrong color space. And of course, HDCP is important. And also, if you're in the corporate world, guess what? Privacy and encryption is there. I don't have to worry about encryption in a broadcast plant because I'm in my plant. It's my own house. But in a corporate environment, when I'm building and I've got stuff from one room and I got to go to the other room, and well, I don't want these guys to hear what I'm doing over there. I need encryption. And of course, EDIT. When I plug it in, I can't have to sit there and focus it as I plug it in. It says, ah, you're a 21:9 screen. Oh, you're a 16:9 screen. Oh, you're a 32:9, and it automatically does it. And that was what EDIT does. So in a very short time here, right now we have a lab. Matrox, as you saw, is a big partner. So is Netgear Pro AV. Color Light with Planar is got the processor. Megapixel, nanolumens. Barco is doing some stuff. Even Blackmagic is doing things in this space. And then Immersive Studio Design is doing Canvas. These are all these guys are getting IP connections into their devices, and they're doing things. And soon, other people are joining the party, and we're welcome to anybody else who wants to come in and join. And we encourage that, and it's an opportunity, basically, when you're in our lab, it's not really a lab, as you can see from the pictures before. It is a real working facility. We're not just demoing things, we're people using it every single day. We got people coming in with their laptops plugging it in. We got people coming in from all different countries to use these rooms in presentation. The whole idea behind this is to see how it all interacts and works. It's going to be probably another few years before this becomes as ubiquitous as HDMI. But mark my words, in a few years, we're going to be seeing this as the way to go. We're going to be saying, wow. And also, I mean, think about it. 2110 is basically on a 12G SDI count, so it's 12G. HDMI by itself is 18 gigs. And DisplayPort is 21 and change. And why does it 21 change? Well, I need those extra bits. I need that 444. I need to be able to do it so I can drive the resolution up. If I'm just doing a picture on a small screen, fine, 12G is fine. Not fine for a 100-foot video wall, not fine for the sphere, not fine for places of that nature where you really want to worry about things. Anyway, that's my spiel, and I'd be happy to discuss this any more, but obviously I'm passionate about this. I think this is where the future's going, and if anybody would like to play or come and see, come and visit. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, I think we're at the end of the day, right?